The Red Raiders signed the number two transfer class in the portal and have a really strong amount of returning production in 2025, including their starting quarterback, Baron Morton. They revamped their football facilities and have put a ton of money into their program, so it's time to see whether or not it's going to pay off. The start to the schedule is pretty easy with two gimme wins against Arkansas Pine Bluff as well as Kent State. And then they play Oregon State at home. The Beavers bringing in Malik Murphy, transfer quarterback from Duke. As we've seen in the past, Duke quarterbacks have done very well the past few seasons with Riley Leonard beating Clemson and then ending up transferring to Notre Dame, making the national championship. Malik Murphy leading the Blue Devils to a 9-win season last year. Oregon State's going to have a really solid team this season. I think they have a chance to beat Texas Tech on the road, but we're taking the Red Raiders early on in the season.
Bye week against Utah on the road. Could be a very interesting game here, considering Utah is bringing in both Devin Dampier from New Mexico to be their starting quarterback and Wayshawn Parker from Washington State to be their starting running back. Hoping that this Utah team can stay healthy after they've dealt with injuries the past couple seasons, really derailing their season. But I really think this is the year that the Utes can put it together and actually look like one of the top 25 teams that they've been ranked at continuously time and time again. Against the Texas Tech team, even though they're bringing in such a strong portal class, I think the road environment that Utah has is going to be enough to push them over the edge to get a solid upset win over the Red Raiders, especially considering that we saw Utah was a competitive team last year, nearly beating BYU in the Holy War, and BYU ended up as a top 25 team last season and was essentially one game away from a conference championship appearance.
Nobody really saw Utah doing as poorly as they did last season. Like you just said, Connor, a lot of close games, but some people had them as a playoff team preseason, and they went 5-7. That's just not what anybody was expecting to happen. So I do think that they'll get it back together this season. I trust Kyle Whittingham as the head coach. He's done a really solid job the past few seasons. If we, take last year out of the books, he's led a really solid program. After the bye week, facing Houston on the road, Connor Wigman transferring in from Texas A&M. I think Houston's going to be a little bit better this season than they were last year, but still going to be around a 500-ish team. A lot of people are really high on this Cougars team. I'm just not really seeing it that much. They just don't have quite enough to compete with some of these other teams in the top half of the Big 12. They're good for one or two upsets, but not here over Texas Tech. We're going Red Raiders all the way on the road in that.
Following week against Kansas, the Jayhawks had a pretty disappointing season last year with expectations of competing for a Big 12 title and maybe sneaking into the playoffs. And that did not happen. While they still were a competitive team, including getting an upset win over Colorado, Kansas has a lot to improve on from last season, and it rests on the shoulders of Jalen Daniels, their starting quarterback. Can he make that next step and lead this Kansas team to a successful season that sees them compete for that Big 12 title that they are striving for? While I do think Kansas is going to be better, and I do think Jalen Daniels will reinsert himself into the top tier quarterbacks in the Big 12, I don't think it will be enough to beat this Red Raiders team with Baron Morton returning with that much senior leadership and bringing in such a strong transfer class. Texas Tech is going to be the better team here, especially at home.
Next up, a road trip to Arizona State. The Sun Devils did make the college football playoffs last season, falling just short in double overtime to Quinn Ewers and the Texas Longhorns. Really solid Arizona State team. They have the most returning production, I believe, in all of the Power Four, bringing back 18 starters from last year's playoff team, including Sam Levitt at quarterback. This is a really, really good Arizona State team. And I think it's kind of crazy to say, but Texas Tech is going to be able to compete with this team. It's even though it's on the road, this is going to sound crazy, but we are taking the Red Raiders to upset Arizona State midway through the season.
And this just speaks volumes to how chaotic the Big 12 can be. Anyone on any given Saturday can beat anyone else in this conference. And I think a key here, even though it is on the road for the Red Raiders, is that a large portion of the Sun Devils offense last season was Cam Skadaboo, and he is off to the NFL. Now, Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson, if that connection is as strong as ever and they can make legitimate strides forward where it doesn't have to become a one-dimensional offense, then Arizona State might wipe the floor with the Red Raiders. But at this current state, I think Texas Tech is able to compete with Arizona State even on the road and get the job done. Now, the following week against Oklahoma State should be a pretty easy walk in the park here. Oklahoma State was horrible last year, very unexpected, especially with Ollie Gordon as their lead back after an incredible season by him 2 years ago. Did not maintain that success, and they're looking to bounce back. I really don't think they have the team to do so, especially with their schedule. It's going to be tough to do, especially on the road against this Red Raiders team that we think is going to be very, very good next year.
After that is Kansas State on the road, and the Wildcats returning Avery Johnson at quarterback. He's a really solid dual threat guy, and I think he's going to give this Texas Tech defense some problems. It's really, really tough to predict Texas Tech to win some of these road games, such as Arizona State or Kansas State. I think they can get one out of the two. We predicted them to beat Arizona State. I do believe that they will fall here to Kansas State and drop to 7-2.
And once again, this is just because the Big 12 is pretty close with all their teams, especially in that top half of the conference. Even though Kansas State is losing DJ Giddens to the NFL, returning Avery Johnson with his dual threat capability is going to alleviate some of the pains of losing your lead back. And the wide receiver room is returning, if not getting transfers in, is overall pretty young. So this Kansas State team is looking very solid. It's just a matter of can they get the job done at home against this Texas Tech team. Like Jonas said, I think they split either the Arizona State game or the Kansas State game. They win one, they'll lose the other. We're just going to go with an upset at Tempe. The next week against BYU, the Cougars returning Jake Retzlaff at quarterback. There are currently some allegations against him, but for the sake of our videos, we are assuming that he is the starting quarterback going forward because he is innocent until proven guilty or proven otherwise. So these predictions are with Jake Retzlaff as the starting quarterback, and that makes BYU a very competitive team. We saw they started the season 9-0 last year before starting to tumble down the stretch and ultimately missing that conference championship game, but then ran over Colorado in their bowl game. They're returning a lot of starting production, and they're some people's top picks to come out of the Big 12. I just think because we're getting towards the end of the season here, I think a similar collapse might be in store, especially against a good Texas Tech team coming off of a tough loss to Kansas State. I think at home, the Red Raiders are going to be able to get the job done and rebound from their Kansas State loss.
Yeah, that one should be really close. Like Connor was just saying, BYU, a really, really solid team. And it's kind of bold to predict Texas Tech to beat two out of the three of Arizona State, Kansas State, and BYU, because those are a lot of people's, top four along with Iowa State. They're all in that 4 game stretch, and to win two out of those three is very impressive. But we are very high on Texas Tech. We do believe that they can pull it off. The schedule lightens up quite a bit after that BYU game with UCF the next week. This one also at home, and it's not really that hard. UCF just not going to be that competitive this season, especially with teams like Texas Tech. The Red Raiders should win this one with ease.
After a late second bye week, they will finish off the season on the road against West Virginia. The Mountaineers are the complete opposite of Texas Tech. They have lost around 50 players to the transfer portal, including, I believe, 28 in one day. This Mountaineers team is just going to be severely depleted. They lost their starting quarterback from last season because he graduated. They're bringing in a brand new head coach as well. All the cards are there for this to be a pretty disastrous season for West Virginia. And just to end the season for Texas Tech, this is exactly the kind of game you're going to want. It's going to be relatively easy. In this scenario, they might be playing for a conference championship appearance. this is going to be a game where they can let loose, really prove their point to playoff committees to push for the college football playoffs, and maybe make history as their first college football playoff appearance.
Yeah, I really like this Texas Tech team, and I think they have a good chance to go very far this season. Our way too early projection was 8.3 wins, 3.7 losses, and we predicted them to go 9-3. The projection up to 8.6 and 3.4, 5.9 wins in the Big 12. Now we were predicting them to go 10-2. The floor 7-5. I could see, maybe things fall apart. I really like this Texas Tech team. I think they're going to go well above their floor. The ceiling 11-1. Nobody from the Big 12 is going to go undefeated. It's pretty safe to say that. So I think the ceiling for a lot of these teams that we really believe in the Big 12 is going to be 11-1.
And that floor is just because, like we were talking about, that 4 game stretch that includes Arizona State, Kansas State, and BYU is really, really difficult. And that's not to mention with a couple other upsets along the way. Oregon State, like we mentioned, could be a really good game, especially early on in the season. Kansas could also be a very interesting opponent. It really just comes down to how chaotic can the Big 12 get and how good can Texas Tech be next season. And obviously, like Jonah was saying, we are really high on this Red Raiders team, and we think they have legitimate cases to make a college football playoff appearance next season. So thank you guys for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more of our scheduled predictions, and we will see you in the next one.